열흘 붉은 꽃이 없다고 하건만 50일은 만개.
Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory Nikke video, and it's time to talk about Black Shadow Scarlet. I'm sure you've seen the whole internet doing crazy numbers with her, so is the hype real around BS Scarlet, or is it just BS? I'll talk about her performance in Union Raid, the current Material H solo raid, and a bunch of other tests in shooting range, arena, equipment, builds, etc. Okay, so Black Shadow is a wind-type burst 3 attacker with a rocket launcher, and just by being wind makes her a very valuable DPS because before we basically had like zero competitive options for wind attackers. She also works similar to A2 in the way that they're designing rocket launchers nowadays, but in AoE size, she's the polar opposite to A2. She's almost more like a sniper in a way, and far better at core hits than the average rocket launcher. Her skill 1 rotates through effects based on how many times she has shot. So in 3 attacks, it deals 250% of final attack as additional damage to the lowest defense enemy. At 6 attacks, it deals 500% to everything in the AoE, but this time it's distributed damage. And I think this is something that maybe some people have missed. That first proc is just straight up damage, whereas the next 2 are distributed. So at 9 attacks, it hits all enemies for a crazy 250% of final attack, but again, also is distributed damage. So if there's a lot of ads on the screen, you'll still do the same total damage, but less to each individual enemy. After the 9th shot, it will start counting the cycle through again, with the effects going 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, and so on. This is by far her best skill. To be honest, it's kind of her only skill in a way. I would get this to level 10 no matter what. Anybody who has her definitely needs to get this all the way maxed out. Skill 2 activates when entering full burst and increases her ammo by 60% for 10 seconds and reloads her mag. This isn't super important, but if you have a line or 2 of max ammo on your gear, it will keep her from having to reload during full burst, which is really, really, really good. Her burst is the usual 40-second cooldown and basically just makes her skill 1 better. It gives her a huge attack buff of 115% for 10 seconds and increases charge damage by 150% for 10 seconds. It also changes the activation of skill 1 to 1, 2, 3 instead of 3, 6, 9. It deals out a silly amount of damage. I'd get this as high as you can as well. Honestly, Black Shadow is so good, you should just go all in on every skill. But decent checkpoints are 10 for skill 1, 4 for skill 2, and 7 for her burst. Spoiler alert, she does more damage than anyone in almost all situations, so don't be afraid to invest. So for overload lines, I would, as usual, prioritize attack. And for raid-focused elemental damage is probably best. I would do at least 1 line of charge speed. Ideally, you want 5% because when combined with the buff from Alice, she fires crazy fast. What she actually wants more lines of, though, is charge damage. For most charge weapons, you usually want more speed, and charge damage is kind of mid. But for Scarlet, she shoots pretty quickly already, so she actually wants more damage bonus and doesn't need that much speed. I would also go for at least 1 line of max ammo, maybe 2 if you don't really get a high roll. And then for cubes, Onslaught is best in slot. First time I've ever said that. Again, charge damage is king for her. I did several comparative tests and with the Adjunct cube versus the Onslaught cube. So charge damage versus charge speed. And sorry, did I say... I forget, I might have said that wrong, but anyway, charge damage is better. The charge speed cube was always 10 to 15% less damage. You can always use the good old Bastion cube too, since you probably have that built to a high level. All right, we're about to get into all the tests and talk squads, but if you're enjoying the video and want more, please subscribe and help me reach my 3.5 thousand sub goal. So, yeah, let's talk about the shooting range tests and squads and stuff like that. I did a variety of tests with a variety of squads. We'll talk bosses in a second. For all these tests, I tried to eliminate the elemental advantage for the shooting range for all the actual attackers if possible. The first test is comparing Black Shadow to OG Scarlet. I tried them in different positions with OG Scarlet and Black Shadow Scarlet like swapping spots. And OG Scarlet slightly outdamaged Black Shadow, but it was close. And keep in mind, OG Scarlet is core 2 for me with level 5 on all gear, pretty optimized lines, 40 affection, and all her skills are level 10. My Black Shadow only had level 2 armor. Her only level 10 skill was skill 1, and I also only had her affection at level 28. So all things being equal, I'd expect Black Shadow to deal bigger numbers. Total damage was 368 million. And then next was keeping the bunnies and leader, but using Alice. I'm sure you've seen the internet talking about this comp. It did a lot of damage at 323 million, but surprisingly less than just using both Scarlets. I'm not actually sure why, because even individually, Black Shadow kept doing slightly more when paired with Scarlet. Maxwell is the other big charge buffer, so I wanted to try that, but this comp did significantly less at only 254 million. However, I would expect this to be at least a little closer if it was an individual boss rather than in the shooting range. Black Shadow did more than she did with Alice. She did more. She did more than she did with Alice. But overall, it was quite a bit less. So then I wanted to compare some Red Hood squads because Alice and Maxwell are also great supports for her. And so, which one is better to pair with who, right? In a raid situation, we want to optimize for multiple teams. Red Hood with Maxwell did more damage than Black Shadow did. Red Hood also did more with Alice than Maxwell, just like Black Shadow did, but the difference was much closer than it was with Black Shadow teams. So it appears giving Maxwell to Red Hood and Alice to Black Shadow is the move. And this also shows that Black Shadow is the new DPS queen. I expected Red Hood to keep her crown longer, but Scarlet has taken it only a month or two later. This is a little scary for, the prospect of power creep, but hopefully now that we have a top tier attacker for all elements, it will even out for a while. I also tested her with A2 just because I thought, it would be fun to use the rocket launcher sword users, and it was surprisingly effective. It was kind of mid-tier in all of the test rankings here that I'm showing you, and I would probably be, very effective as a team for mobs and pushing campaign. Finally, I tested the Black Shadow Alice team with schoolgirls versus the bunnies, and bunnies did way more damage, honestly. But I think for a boss stage, this could change quite a bit. And in fact, for the solo raid, I think this might be the comp to actually use with the schoolgirls and save the bunnies for someone else. So speaking of the solo raid and other bosses, let's go ahead and talk about that. So against the new Material H solo raid, I would recommend using Tia, Leader, Naga, Black Shadow, and Alice. This is by far the most effective squad on this raid and probably the only sort of traditional squad, or the one that you would normally think of as making sense. My unit and I still have a lot of testing to do for the solo raid in general, but it's looking like your other 4 teams will be pretty unusual. The combo of units, in order to deal with those 4 enemies to get their shield down fast enough is pretty strange. At least you can feel like you have a big brain when you're using Black Shadow Scarlet and not worry about too much. Okay. Also tested her against level 10 of the previous Union raid before that went away, and she was slapping all of them around. She did more damage than pretty much anyone in almost all bosses, except for Red Hood against Stormbringer. But that's not even a fair comparison because that boss is far away and it's weak to iron. So basically it's the perfect storm for Red Hood. Okay, let's talk PvP. I was optimistic that she would be the unit that would finally switch up the meta in Arena, but it didn't happen. She's pretty decent, but she's not overthrowing OG Scarlet or Privity. She doesn't even seem quite as good as Red Hood, from what I can tell, as a primary DPS. She's somewhere on the same level as like Alice and Summer Niece on that. However, I think she's a solid secondary DPS, and you might want to include her in your second or third team for Special Arena to just deal extra damage with either Privity or Red Hood. So yeah, that's Black Shadow Scarlet. She's crazy. She's the definition of a must pull and is pushing some crazy numbers and some more power creep. She should be everyone's new priority, and her design is probably one of the best ones in the game yet. She's definitely one of my favorite anyway. Please subscribe for more nikke videos and streams. I do this every week. Check the description below for a Discord link. Peace.